What we're going to be covering in today's webinar is an end-to-end inventory experience. We're going to talk to you about how to set up inventory from the very beginning, enabling it in your company, what's required in your company to set up that inventory. We'll also be talking about setting up inventory products. So the specific inventory pieces that you sell, we're going to be setting those up on the products and services list. And I'm going to show you all the different steps that it takes to create those, because it's a little bit more in depth than a normal product or service. It has a little bit more moving parts, a little bit more stuff going on there. Number 3, enter purchase orders and track inventory purchases. This is where we're going to talk about purchase orders, what they do, how to enter them, how to track them, and also how to record the fact that you've actually received your inventory into your QuickBooks Online company file, and also how to track those on reports. So it's very important for you to be able to know how much inventory you have on hand in QuickBooks, and also to track the sales and the purchases through your reports. We'll be talking about all of that. Number 5, we'll also talk about how to identify possible issues, and if there's any irregularity in terms of your quantity on hand of your inventory products in QuickBooks, we're going to show you how to change those quantities inside QuickBooks to get them to match the number of inventory you actually have in the real world. So that's number 5. And of course, we're also here to answer your questions. At any time, you can type in your questions into the questions area and get an answer from one of our instructors there. So first of all, let's talk about how to enable inventory for your company. So QBO inventory requires you to have QuickBooks Online Plus. You have to have Plus in order to use QuickBooks Online's inventory feature. So first of all, we're going to go up here to the gear icon and then choose Account and Settings underneath your company. Now, before we jump into inventory and turning that on and off, I'm going to go ahead and show you where it is that you can see your version of QuickBooks Online, because right here under the billing and subscription information, there is a section called QuickBooks, and from here you can see your plan details. We are using QuickBooks Online Plus, which is required in order to use inventory. So if you're not using QuickBooks Online Plus, you'll need to go in here and change your subscription status. There will be a link right here where you can change that status. Then we're going to go over to Sales, and the inventory setting is going to be under Products and Services. So here's the option right here. By default, it's turned off. So you do have to go in here and turn it on. We have Track Inventory Quantity on Hand. So I'm going to turn that on and then choose Save. Once I've done that, I'm then going to be given the option later on the Products and Services list to create inventory products. Until you do this, you're not going to be able to create those inventory products. So now we're going to close this window and venture on over into the Sales areas. Over here on the nav bar, just click on Sales. And then we're going to go to the Products and Services list. So the Products and Services list is where QuickBooks stores all of the information about the things that you buy and sell in your business. Now, this is regardless of whether they're inventory or not. This is where services are at, non-inventory products, and also inventory products. You can set up a new product or service by clicking on New up here at the top right. And from here, we're seeing inventory, non-inventory services, and bundles. So there's a pretty big difference between inventory and all of these others, because a service is a service that you perform for your customers that you charge them for. Non-inventory are going to be usually physical objects that you sell, but you don't keep track of how many of them you have on hand at any given time. So the little example that it gives for us right here is nuts and bolts, for example, and also building materials is another good example. So these are things that you could potentially charge your customers for, but you just don't keep track of how much of them you have on hand. Whereas inventory products are things that you buy and sell, and you also keep track of how many of them you have. So I'm going to go ahead and click on inventory to start working on this. Now, we're going to start selling lawnmowers at our company because we're a landscaping company. So the name for this item is going to be lawnmower. Next, it's going to ask us for a SKU. That means stock keeping unit. Now, you don't have to enter a SKU, but if you want to record your SKU, and have that populate onto invoice transactions and also potentially purchase orders, so you can see the SKU for your products. You can enter it right here. You can also enter a SKU that matches up with the SKU of the people that you buy these things from. That way you can potentially have the same SKU as they do, and you can better keep track of that both on your purchase orders and also your invoices. But this is an entirely made up number by you. There really aren't any suggestions or anything like that. It's just a number that you keep for your stock keeping unit. I'm going to go ahead and put in LAWN-1. That's our first lawnmower that we're going to be selling. Right over here, we get to choose a picture of the product or service that we're setting up. And so I have a picture of a lawnmower that we're going to go over to. I'm just going to click on that little picture right there. And I'm going to go over to my desktop. I have a picture of a lawnmower right in here. And that's going to give us our lawnmower. And so down here, we also have category. If you have a rather long products and services list and you want to divide it up into different categories, you can use a category here. Most businesses really don't need this, but if you have a very long products and services list, it can be handy. It allows you to divide up the things that you sell into different categories. Notice that we don't have any set up over here, because if we did, we would have a little bit of a subdivider between the different products and services that you sell, and basically allows you to group the things that you sell together onto your products and services list and on your sales forms too, as well as your sales reports. So it could be a good thing to think about in case you have a lot of different things that you need to organize a products and services list for. Retail locations often need to do this. That way they can see general categories of the things that they sell. So right here we have initial quantity on hand. This is how many of the products that you're setting up you have right now. We don't have any lawnmowers, so I'm going to enter 0. That'll allow me to set up this inventory and actually show you the purchase order process and also the purchasing process. So that way you'll see every step along the way of getting these lawnmowers into our inventory. We also have the as of date. That's the date that you counted the number that you have right here. And we're going to put in today's date right there, as well as the reorder point. Now the reorder point is the number of inventory that we want to have on hand before we reorder. Or it could also be the minimum number on hand that we ever want to have. So for instance, if I put in 10, that's me telling QuickBooks that once I get to 10, I want it to tell me and warn me, so that way I can go order some more of them. So this is basically the lowest number on hand you want to have before you start buying more of it. Scrolling down, there's a whole section down here where we get to assign various different accounts and also descriptions of what it is that we sell. Right here we have the inventory asset account, and QuickBooks sets that up for you whenever you set up your first product or service. So you don't, or your first inventory product, so you don't have to create that. There's no need to go into your chart of accounts and do that. It's just going to be right there for you. Yours will probably have inventory asset without the -1 on it. Mine is doing that because I brought mine in from desktop, so it's creating a new account for me, but you normally aren't going to have that -1 at the end. The sales information right here is what it is that the customer is going to see whenever we sell them this inventory. So, you know, I really want to talk up these lawnmowers. I think that they're the best lawnmowers that there have ever been, and I really want to brag about them with my customers. So I'm going to use a lot of great buzzwords and things like that. So we're going to put in best lawnmower you'll ever mow lawn with. This is the Collector's Edition Gold Extreme Lawnmower Plus. And right here for the sales price and rate, we're going to charge our customers $1,000 for these lawnmowers. And the income account is sales of product income. Now I'll explain the relationship between income, the inventory asset, and the expense accounts as we go forward. But they have a very delicate relationship to one another between the purchases and also the selling of the inventory items. We're gonna walk through this step by step so you can see all of the impacts to our financial statements as we both buy the lawnmowers and also sell them. Right here, if you charge sales tax to your customers, be sure to mark this off as being taxable if it is. And then also the purchasing information. This is what our vendors see whenever we buy these lawnmowers. Now, a lot of the time, it's a good idea to put the model number in or the SKU that your vendor uses to organize their own inventory. So if this is model number 1066 or something like that, according to the vendor, that's what we would put in here. We could also put their SKU, and that'll help them out whenever we put in a purchase order and send that on over to them. The cost of these lawnmowers, we pay $200 a lawnmower, which is a pretty good margin, gotta say, if I'm selling them for $1,000 a piece. Now, here's how the accounting breaks down. Whenever we buy the lawnmowers, our inventory asset is going to go up, and our checking account, which we're going to use to buy the lawnmowers, is going to go down. So basically, at that point, all we're doing is trading one asset for another asset. One asset's going down, another asset's going up. And a lot of people, whenever they buy inventory, they naturally gravitate over towards the profit and loss statement, because the profit and loss statement generally tells you about the totals of the things that you buy and you sell. So they expect to see something right on the profit and loss report telling them about how many lawnmowers they bought, or I guess I should say inventory rather than lawnmowers. But the fact is that whenever you buy inventory, you're not going to see anything on your profit and loss statement because you haven't actually sold it yet. And because you haven't sold it yet, it's not going to appear there. So it's all going to happen on your balance sheet. You're just going to see checking account go down, inventory asset going up, and that's it. Now, later on, once you sell your inventory asset is going to go down by the value of the inventory, and the amount that it gets decreased is going to increase cost of goods sold. And that account appears on the profit and loss statement. So that's where you're going to be able to see the value of the inventory that you purchased and then later on sold. Now, of course, it's also going to increase your income because, of course, you've sold something. So your income is going to go up by the same amount of money that you're depositing into your checking account. So there's a lot of accounting going on there, but and it sounds pretty advanced, and it frankly is pretty advanced. But we're going to walk through every step of this so that way you can see all of it from beginning to end. So now I'm going to save and close on this. All right, we've got our lawnmower all set up, and it shows us a little screenshot over there, which is the picture of the lawnmower. Now, on this report, this products and services list, it also shows us these two little icons up here at the very top, low stock and out of stock. And what's great about this is that you can go to sales and then products and services. And if you've got a really long list of products and services that you sell and you only want to see the inventory products that have hit their reorder point, what you can do is click on low stock right here, and it filters out everything except for those things that have hit their reorder point. That's the big advantage of reorder point, because now I can just go here, click that, and it shows me all the things that I need to reorder. Big advantage there. It also shows us anything that's out of stock. So you can click that separately, and it just so happens that this is both out of stock and low stock. So it's showing up as both. But over time, you'll probably have more products on this list and be able to differentiate between the two. So we need to put an order in for these lawnmowers to stock them. Now, the next step is the ordering process, and that begins, generally speaking, with a purchase order. Now, not everybody necessarily uses purchase orders, but in a lot of cases, vendors actually do require you to send them in. And basically, with a purchase order, you're requesting the purchase of some inventory. Now, I'm going to go over here to my expenses and then vendors section. And your vendors are the people that you buy things from. So generally speaking, the people who provide you with your inventory should be set up as vendors. And what we're going to do is buy something from one of our vendors, or at least we're going to put in a purchase order for one of our vendors named Hicks Hardware right here. So what I'm going to do is send them a purchase order by going to the Create menu, and then underneath Vendors, choosing Purchase Order. So purchase orders are what are referred to as non-posting transactions. That means that they don't actually impact any of our account balances at all. So our balance sheet, our profit and loss report, basically none of our reports, except for those reports that are specifically for open purchase orders, will be impacted by this. All a purchase order does is it allows us to communicate with the vendor, telling them what it is that we want to buy. So we're not actually buying it yet. That comes later on. But on a purchase order, we can send an order to them and hopefully get those inventories, that inventory later on. So right here, I'm going to put in my vendor, which is going to be Hicks Hardware. And then I'll put in their email address. And if you want to send this to multiple people, you can separate their names and their email addresses with commas, or you can also click on B, CC, and CC right here to include some of those options too. Here we have the mailing address. That's where we're going to mail it if you are going to be mailing it off to them. If not, you really don't have to worry too much about that. But the shipping address is important because this is where you want them to send the inventory. As it happens, on a purchase order, you can choose a different ship to, because if you need to do any drop shipping, you can choose your customers from this list, and it'll automatically put their shipping address right here in this field if you have that loaded in their customer record. If not, you can always change this manually by highlighting it and then entering a different address. There's also the purchase order date, which is usually going to be the date that you want to actually send this purchase order to them, and then a ship via if you have a special request for shipping. Up at the top right, there's also a gear icon that you can click on to turn on other options. Like right here, you can actually number your own purchase orders by turning on custom transaction numbers. Normally, there's not any need for that, but if you want to assign your own purchase order numbers, you can right there. And there's also a place right here where you can add your own fields. So if there's something specific that you want to keep track of for your purchase orders and potentially also your sales, you can name it whatever you like to and just type in, say, sales rep right here, and then close that. And now you'll have a sales rep field on your purchase order. So you can track some unique data, and you get up to 3 of those right here. We don't need any of this, but I just wanted to show you those options up there at the top right under that gear icon. So here in the item details, this is where we're going to enter the inventory that we want to buy. I want to buy some lawnmowers, so I'll enter that. There's our lawnmower with LAWN as the SKU. And then it enters the description. Remember, this is the description that we put in for the purchasing description. So they're seeing model number 1066. They're not seeing all those buzzwords that we put in for the Extreme Lawnmower Gold or whatever it is we set up earlier. We want to buy 50 lawnmowers. So we're really stocking up here. And whenever you put your cursor over this quantity field, notice how it gives us the quantity on hand and also the reorder point for our inventory. So it lets us know exactly how much we have and whether or not we're out or we've hit our reorder point. We're going to put in 50. We want to buy, actually, let's stock up even more. I'm going to put in 100. Let's order 100. And the rate is going to be $200 per lawnmower for a total of $20,000 total. If this purchase is for a specific customer and you're tracking the job costing for a job or for a project or for a customer, and you want the expenses for this to also appear later on whenever you're looking at those job costing reports, you can choose the customer's name right here. That's not the case for us. We're just stocking up on inventory, so there's no need for that. Scrolling down, there's also an area right here for your message to vendor, so you can send a specialized message just to them, and also a memo that could potentially appear on the purchase order, as well as an attachment. Generally, there's not a whole lot of need for attachments on purchase orders, but if you have a document that you want to attach this, you can. Last, I'm going to go ahead and save and send this purchase order. And remember, this purchase order is not actually going to impact any of our accounts. It's not going to impact any of our inventory levels. All it is me requesting the purchase of 100 lawnmowers at $200 a piece from Hicks Hardware. So I'm going to save and send this. And it's got the subject line and also the body of the email that gets sent out to our vendor. And then over on the right-hand side, this is the purchase order that they'll receive in the email. Then I'll send and close, and that's sent off to our vendor. You can monitor how many purchase orders you have and also the total value of those purchase orders at any time on the vendors list right here with purchase order. And if you click on that, it's going to narrow down the list of vendors to just those vendors that you have open purchase orders with. But this button and the corresponding filters don't really give you a whole lot of information in regards to how much is left of the purchase order to fulfill or what sorts of products were on the purchase orders. So we need reports to help us out with that information. I'm going to click on reports over here on the left-hand side, and I'm going to show you two different reports that are used for tracking open purchase orders. Over here at the top right, I'm just going to type in open purchase, and we've got two of them, open purchase order list and open purchase orders detail. I prefer the open purchase orders detail, but I'm going to show you both today. So the open purchase order list, opening that up, is going to show us a listing of our open purchase orders by vendor. So right here, we're able to see Hicks Hardware and then a listing of all the purchase orders that we have with them that are open. But it doesn't tell us what we ordered. It also doesn't tell us if some of it has been fulfilled and how much is in back order or anything like that. It does tell us the total amount of the purchase order versus the open balance. So if part of it has been fulfilled, then you're going to see a difference between these two numbers, but it doesn't tell you how many have been fulfilled or anything like that. Basically, this is a way of very quickly seeing all of your open purchase orders without a whole lot of details, which if you have a lot of open purchase orders, is a pretty good report, but otherwise it's not a whole lot of use. Instead, most people tend to use the open purchase orders detail report, which is right here. Now, whenever I click on that, it's the open purchase orders detail report. This is going to show me by product what is on a purchase order. And then it's going to show me the date, the number of the purchase order, who the purchase order was with. And then it also shows me the quantity on the purchase order, as well as how many I've received so far versus in back order. And then the total amount versus the received amount, and also the open balance. So we get tons of great information on this report. And this is generally the one that people run. Now, when it comes to finally receiving your inventory, this is going to be done through a separate transaction, which is going to be either an expense, a check, or a bill. So the way in which you're actually paying for your inventory is going to determine which transaction you use here. A bill is used if your vendor sends you a bill, and on that bill it has a due date, and you're going to pay that separately. Whereas a check is if there's no bill involved at all, you're just writing a handwritten check or you're printing a check out of QuickBooks for them. And an expense is if there's no bill involved and the money is just going to be taken directly from your checking account, or you're going to use your debit card to buy this inventory. Now, most of the time, this is going to be done with a bill. So your vendor is usually going to send you a bill telling you how much you owe and when. So that's the way that we're going to record this. But regardless of the type of transaction you use, the process is still the same for all three of those different versions. So the first thing we're going to do here on this bill is enter the vendor's name, which is Hicks Hardware. And as soon as I do, out pops all of the purchase orders that we have with them. So you can add multiple purchase orders onto the same bill or just one. We're just going to add the one. And notice that on this purchase order, it tells us the date, the total, the balance, and it also shows us what we ordered. So it's showing us our model number 1066. I'm going to go ahead and add that. That brings the purchase order over onto the bill. Now, if you have other purchase orders that are open, you have to click on this little arrow button if you're not going to add them, but usually it'll go back by itself. So down here in the item details area, we're able to see the lawnmowers. It brought over the quantity. We can still see the quantity right there. Just put your mouse over or your cursor over the quantity. It also has the rate, the amount, all that great stuff on there. And what we're going to do is fill in the top portion, which is the terms and also the bill date and the due date. So we're going to say that Hicks Hardware gives us 10 days to pay this bill. So terms of net 10 works great. And then also the bill number. The bill number, if they're sending you a bill, usually it appears up at the top left and the top right of the bill. It'll say bill number, whatever. And it's good to record that if you're using a bill right here. So we've got these lawnmowers entered here. The problem is that in this case, Hicks Hardware did not have 100 lawnmowers on hand to send to us. So they're only able to partially fulfill this purchase order. They only have 70. So we're going to type in 70 here. And the other three are going to be in back order. Now, the great thing about QBO in this case is that it'll remember the other 30 on the purchase order. So it's not going to close the purchase order. It's going to remember that you only received part of it. So pretty good thing going on there. So we're going to buy these. And by the way, if there's anything that changes between the purchase order and the bill itself, like maybe if the price goes down or up, you can change that too. No problem. You know, it won't change the original purchase order, but it will change it on this bill. And it's important to note that this bill is the actual transaction that is going to put the inventory into your balance sheet. So after you record this, you're going to be able to look at inventory reports and actually see how many lawnmowers you have on hand, because this is a record of you actually getting those lawnmowers. Scrolling down a bit, there's also an attachments area down here. This is really a good field to use if you've been sent a PDF of the bill, or if you've been sent a paper bill, you can scan it and then attach an image of it or attach the PDF to the attachments area right here. That way you can have the paper document attached to the transaction in QuickBooks, so you can always download it and look at it again if you need to, or so can your accountant whenever they're going through your books and they need to see those source documents. So now I'm going to record this by clicking on Save and Close. And so I'm going to close this. By the way, QBO now does online bill pay. And if you click on Learn More, you can learn about how you can pay your vendors directly through QuickBooks with the Paid Bills section of the program. So now we have our purchase order. It's been partially fulfilled. We can see that because the quantity on the purchase order is 100, but we've received 70. So we've got that going on. We also have a 30 back order quantity. So QuickBooks remembers how much has been fulfilled versus how much hasn't. And in fact, later on, whenever Hicks Hardware sends over the other 30, we can go up here to the Create menu, choose Bill again for the remaining 30. I'm going to go ahead and put in Hicks Hardware as the vendor. Out pops that drawer again. I only want to add the purchase order. We'll add that in, and then over comes the remaining 30. And so QuickBooks remembers exactly how much is left on that purchase order. Whenever I put my mouse over it, notice that it says quantity on hand 70 because we got the 70 earlier from that other bill. So QBO does keep track of the amount that's going on that purchase order, and it remembers that you only have to receive the other 30. So now we've received our bill, we've received our lawnmowers. Eventually, we're going to have to pay that bill by going up here to the Create menu. I might as well do it now. So I'll just go over to Pay Bills. Here we've got Hicks Hardware. I'm just going to select them from this list, and we're paying them for $14,000 to pay off that bill. And that's going to come out of our checking account, which is right up here. And we're going to write a handwritten check, number 124, or we could have QuickBooks printed out, or however it is we're paying them, we can include that in the starting check number instead. So I'm going to save and close that. And that tells QuickBooks that we've paid that bill. We no longer see the fact that we owe Hicks Hardware that amount of money. I think we still owe them on another bill, but I'm going to go back over here to my vendors. Looks like Hicks Hardware. Yep. So we still owe them on a little bit of a bill, which was separate, but we paid off that one. Now we've received our inventory. Let's take a look at a couple of reports to see how the accounting works with receiving inventory, and also to see how we can track the things that we own. First of all, I'm going to go over here to reports, and I'm going to run an inventory report. We've got a couple, 3 in fact, and the report that I want to run right now is called the Inventory Valuation Summary Report. Now this report is going to show us all of our inventory items, and then it's also going to display the SKU, the quantity on hand, the total asset value, and also the calculated average. So if you spend money on inventory over time and the amount that you spend per inventory item goes up or down, the calculated average will calculate that for you. So this report is really handy for seeing how much of an inventory you have on hand. But I'm curious about the total value of the inventory and taking a look at that balance sheet as well. So I want to go over here and look at my financial statements by going to reports and then balance sheet, because everything that's happened so far has been on the balance sheet. There's no profit and loss information to look at just yet. On the balance sheet, we can see that so far, 2 accounts have been impacted. First of all, the checking account has gone down by $14,000. because we paid that bill for $14,000 to bring the inventory into our company. Now, right here, we can see negative 14,000. So it brought our checking account balance down by $14,000. But as you might know with accounting, whenever you increase or decrease one account, you also have to increase or decrease another account. There's always a debit, there's always a credit to these sorts of transactions. And if you didn't know that, you should attend one of our Accounting 101 classes coming up, because it's a fabulous primer on how to read a financial statement and how to look at a chart of accounts. So our checking account's gone down by $14,000, and the other account that was increased or decreased is inventory assets -1. That's the one that was assigned to our lawnmower whenever we first set it up. So it's gone up to 14,000. So checking went down by 14,000, inventory asset went up by 14,000. And we can see that right here by clicking on the number, and it'll take us to the individual transactions that have impacted that account balance. So there's no profit and loss, there's no cost of goods sold just yet. That comes later on once we actually sell the inventory. So let's do that. Let's sell some inventory and let's see the impact that it's going to have on our various reports and also our financial statements. I'm going to go up here to my create menu, and we're going to sell this by using either an invoice or also a sales receipt. Either way is fine. It's just a matter of whether the customer is paying you right now, which would be a sales receipt, versus later on, which would be an invoice. I'm going to enter this as a sales receipt. And then for the customer, actually, you know what? Before I do this, let me show you a little setting. I'm going to close this really quick because I want to show you some settings for your sales transactions, because you may want the SKU to appear on your sales transactions as you enter them. So let's take a look at some of those settings that might be of particular use to a company with inventory. I'm going to go up to my gear icon and then choose Account and Settings, and then over to Sales. And right here under Sales Form Content, we've got things that have been turned on or off for the various things that we sell. Like we've got custom fields set up. I'm actually going to turn these off. We don't need to track PO number or sales rep, but if you do need to track the PO number from a purchase order on a sale, you can. You can set this up right here under the custom fields, just type in PO number and turn it on as internal. And you can put it on the invoices or sales receipts as you create them. There's also shipping, service date, if you want to list a service date in particular to different services that you're performing. Probably not very much used with inventory, but you can do that too. And also custom transaction numbers if you want to have a specific number on your invoices as you create them. So those are some options that you can turn on and off right there. And also there is an option underneath products and services for show SKU column. If you want to show that on your invoices, you can turn that on. Now your customers aren't going to see that unless you actually go into your forms and choose to show it to them. But that's done separately. I'm just going to turn it on here for us. That's show SKU column. And click done. And so now that I've turned on those options, now let's go make a sale. So I'm going to go up to my create menu and then sales receipt. Now this form looks more like what I would like it to look like. For my customer, you don't have to enter a customer for a sales receipt, but I will, because it's going to be a big sale and I want to track how much I've sold to Cool Cars. We've got the email address, billing address, the sales receipt date, all the information on the sales receipt. They are going to pay us. I'm just going to say they're going to pay us with a check, but ultimately you'll just enter your payment method right here, whatever it happens to be for that customer, or click on add new if you want to set up a new one. And then we'll also say they're going to pay us with check number 23487, and we're going to deposit that straight into our checking account. So now I'm going to list all the things that they're buying, which is lawnmower. Notice that it puts the SKU in right here, and then it also puts in the sales description. Best lawnmower you'll ever mow a lawn with. This is the collector's edition Gold Extreme Lawnmower Plus, and we're going to sell them. If I put my cursor over there, it will also show me my quantity on hand, so you always know every step of the way. I'm going to sell them 10 lawnmowers worth $1,000 a piece for a total of $10,000. Now, Cool Cars is non-taxable, so that's why even with the tax thing checked off, we don't see any tax amounts going on down here. But if this customer is taxable, it will calculate the tax for you as long as the product is also taxable. Scrolling down a bit, You've got a message displayed on sales receipt, a memo, attachments area, same things you would normally see on a transaction like this. So now I'm going to save and close to record this sale. And so now we can see our checking account's gone up by $10,000 because we recorded that sale. It went up to $79,000. And right here we have a sales of product income, $10,000. And whenever I go back over to my balance sheet, we also see on our balance sheet, that our inventory asset one account went down by $2,000. Now the reason why it went down is because we sold 10 lawnmowers worth $200 a piece. So 10 times 200 equals 2,000. So that was removed from inventory asset, which now equals 12,000. So with that transaction, checking account went up by 10,000. Inventory asset one went down by 2,000. Now again, if you know anything about accounting, you know that whenever you create these transactions, there's a debit side and a credit side. And if one account is increased by one account, another account will also be increased or decreased by the same account, by the same amount. But in this case, we got checking going up by $10,000, inventory asset going up by, or going down by $2,000. What are the other accounts involved in this? Well, now is where the profit and loss comes into play. Because if I go back over to my report list, we have got on this list of reports the profit and loss statement. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And from here, we're able to see the actual impact over time on our profit and loss. Here is sales of product income. That's the other side of the checking account going up. The checking account went up by $10,000. Sales of product income goes up by $10,000. Well, what about the $2,000 that left inventory assets? Well, that went into cost of goods sold. Right here, if I click on cost of goods sold, I'm going to see that this increased by $2,000. So inventory asset goes down, cost of goods sold goes up. And going back over to the products and services area, those are the exact same accounts that we indicated whenever we set up the lawnmower. You go ahead and click on edit on this just to show you, because right here we have inventory asset, tracking the asset value, sales of product income, tracking the income amount over time, and cost of goods sold, tracking the cost of goods sold after we've sold the inventory. So those are all of the accounts involved in these sales. And so that way we're able to see it split between the balance sheet and the profit and loss whenever we buy it and whenever we sell it. There are other reports that are important to look at for these sales as well. In particular, there is a sales report that I think a lot of you are going to love, which is called the Sales by Product Service Summary Report. And this report is going to show you exactly what you've been selling and also how much of it you've sold in terms of the quantity and the total amount. But on top of all that, it's also going to give you your margins. So we're able to see quantity, amount, percentage of sales, average price, cost of goods sold, gross margin, and also the gross margin percentage. So some great numbers there for you. So this report is essentially the result of a lot of hard work in setting up those inventory items and purchasing them and selling them and things like this. This is the fruit of your labors, I would say. So sales of product service summary report, great report to run. Also, there are other reports that we can look at, and I want to pay special attention to two other inventory reports. Now, there is an inventory valuation detail report. This report is probably the least run of all of the inventory reports, but it is available for you because this report is going to show you every situation in which inventory has gone up or down. And it's a good place for you to look in case you ever have any questions about what may have increased or decreased inventory in some mysterious way. So if you're trying to find like a problem, this would be a good place to go, because from here you're able to see every increase and every decrease in the quantity of your inventory, and it's divided up by inventory item. And it's going to show you all the transactions that occur over the course of a date range. For us, it's this month's the date. But of course, you can change this date range to be whatever you want it to be. A lot of the time, though, this report gets rather long, so it's not really something I recommend in terms of daily use. Instead, people normally use the inventory valuation summary report, which is going to be, which is going to be right here. And we've already seen this, but just to show you how it's been updated since that sale, it's got the lawnmower, it's got the SKU, it's got the quantity on there. So it is going to update over time as we sell these pieces of inventory. Now you might wonder how it is that QuickBooks figures out how much money to take out of the lawnmower asset value and put into cost of goods sold. Because after all, over time, it might be that you buy inventory for different amounts. Because right here it has that calculated average, right? So what happens if I buy lawnmowers later on for $300 a piece? How does QuickBooks use the value of that lawnmower to calculate the cost of goods sold and to move things out of the asset value account? Well, QuickBooks Online uses an inventory valuation system named FIFO, which stands for first in, first out. And that means that it'll get rid of all 60 of those lawnmowers that I bought for $200 first. And then it's going to start selling off $300 lawnmowers after that. So you have to get rid of all the first things you sold, then they'll start going into the next ones. That's called FIFO. Bit of a different situation than desktop, because with desktop it uses the average weighted cost valuation of inventory. There's one last inventory report that I want to look at here, and that is the physical inventory worksheet. Now this is a report that you can print out of QuickBooks and put into a clipboard, and you can use it to guide you in assessing how many you have of inventory versus how many are in QuickBooks. And that allows you to see whether or not you need to increase or decrease the amount that you have in QuickBooks to keep it up to date with how many of you how much of the inventory you actually have. So right here we have a listing of the products that you have in inventory, as well as a description, quantity on hand, reorder point, and quantity on PO. So it's got everything you need to assess how much you have of this inventory and how much you're going to have reasonably soon from a PO. There's also the physical count area. And this is what you'll use as you print it out and put it onto that clipboard. You can then walk around your warehouse or your shop or wherever it is where you're keeping your inventory, write down all the numbers, and then if the number that you have is different from the actual quantity on hand in QuickBooks, you'll know that you need to increase or decrease the quantity that you have in QuickBooks. Now the question is, how do you increase the quantity you have in QuickBooks? Well, that's going to be done through the Create menu up here at the top right, and there's an option underneath Other called Inventory Quantity Adjustment. Whenever you click on that, it's going to take you to a screen where you can tell QuickBooks about a product needing to be increased or decreased in their quantity on hand. So let's say, for instance, we lost some lawnmowers. What I'll do is put lawnmower right over there in the product. It's got the SKU, it's got the description, and it's got the current quantity on hand. But I don't have 60 of them anymore. For whatever reason, they grew legs, they ran away. I mean, they've already got wheels. I don't know why they need legs too, but let's just say they did. I'm going to put in 58 right here because we lost 2 of them. And that means that QuickBooks is going to have to subtract 2 from the quantity on hand. So basically, what's going to happen is 2 times 200 is going to be reduced from my inventory asset account because we originally bought them for $200 and we have to account for the loss of that. But again, going back to accounting 101, if you increase or decrease an account, you also have to increase or decrease another account. So if we're decreasing inventory asset by $400, we've got to do that same thing to some other account. Now, the other account that we're increasing or decreasing is this one right here. It's called the Inventory Adjustment Account. And so what we're going to do is click the drop down arrow and choose an account that summarizes why it is our inventory went up or down. Now, this one is a little bit more complicated because here we're basically telling QuickBooks why we lost the inventory. And it could be that you have a spoilage account, you could have an expense account for theft, you could have an expense account for charitable contributions. Whatever the reason is that you lost the inventory, that's the account that you'll use here. And it could be that you need to create a new one to categorize that too. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let's make this a happy story, right? Let's say that the lawnmowers didn't grow legs and ran away, which would be super freaky. Instead, we're going to say that we gave these away to a charity. We're going to have like a charity wrap or something. So I'm going to put in charitable contribution, and then I'll add that account onto my chart of accounts directly from this window. And the account type is going to be an expense account. And I want a special account for this. That way, whenever it comes time to filing taxes, I can know exactly how much money I gave away to charity in terms of my charitable contributions. The detail type is going to be charitable contributions as well. And then I'm going to save and close this. So now we're going to reduce our quantity of lawnmowers by 2, and we're going to be decreasing inventory asset by $400 and increasing charitable contributions by $400 too. I'm going to save and close this. And so that happened. Now we can see quantity on hand is now 50. And whenever I go over to my balance sheet, I'm going to click on reports and then balance sheet. And from here, we have inventory asset 1 went down to 11,600, which is exactly where I want it to be. And because it's subtracted 2 times 200, which equals 400. And then if I go over to my profit and loss statement, by clicking reports and then profit and loss, from here, I'm able to see the $400 worth of inventory that got moved out. Under charitable contributions, there's the $400. Now you might be wondering, has that affected the sales reports? And the answer is no, because if I go back over to reports, the only thing that ever affects your sales reports are sales transactions. So running a sales by product service summary report, we're not going to see the inventory quantity adjustments on here at all. It's just concerned with the sales transactions, which happen to be invoices and sales receipts, and that's it. So it doesn't consider inventory quantity adjustments at all. And that's a lot of the basics in regards to inventory. I do want to show you one more thing, which are called apps. You can click on apps over here on the left-hand side. And I know that some of you may have special needs in regards to inventory that aren't necessarily available in QuickBooks Online by itself. But there are a lot of great inventory apps out there that allow you to add to the functionality of QuickBooks. Whenever I'm going to go ahead and browse a category here, we've got a lot of different categories of apps. For instance, we've got inventory management and also manufacturing. Those are going to be the main two for this sort of an operation. With inventory management, you've got apps like SOS Inventory, Sin7, All Orders, Trade Gecko, and each one of these different apps are going to allow you to do more things than you can with just QuickBooks Online. But these apps sync with QuickBooks Online. So whatever you put into these apps is also going to go into QBO. So right here, for instance, I'm going to click on SOS Inventory. SOS Inventory gives us the ability to add more functionality into QuickBooks by giving us sales orders, assemblies. So if you're in manufacturing, assemblies is going to be pretty important for you. You got serial inventory, so you can track the serial numbers, multiple locations, so you can have different warehouses and different offices. And so you've got all of those things involved and integrated into SOS Inventory. And you can check out the reviews. You've got pricing information right here. And the great thing about all these apps is that they all have a free period. So this one has a free 14-day trial right there. And you can just click on Get App Now to go check it out. And there's tons of these things that you can look through and see which one's the right one for you. You can try them all out. You can use all those free trials. They all have a free trial. And that'll allow you to see whether or not you need to use any of these additional features. There's also manufacturing. And SOS Inventory also appears on this one. But we also get all orders, Shopbox, transactions deleted. So tons of great stuff on here for you to use if you need more functionality out of the inventory module in QBO. And I know that some people do, so I always include that little mention of apps towards the very end.